Well, you want it, you got it. Let's see if this Ultimate Edition makes this movie better in any way. Is it shorter? It is not shorter. Ah, welcome to the party, Jenna Malone. Just so you know, there's still going to be some absurd leaps in logic, unexplained coincidences, and continued overacting in this edition, but glad you're here. We've made it to our first difference in this movie, where we get to see Bruce's mom's face a lot better in one shot. Thank God this shot was restored, so that the redundant Bruce's parents get murdered scene could confirm that this asshole is about to shoot her in the chin. Luckily, Bruce Wayne is here to make sure this one easily seen kid gets back into the buddy line. The Ultimate Edition shows us these school children to explain that there was a field trip, which is why there's a random girl standing in the middle of a dangerous building collapse later. But there are two teachers here, one at the beginning and one at the end of the line. And they can't do a simple head count? Yes, things are chaotic, but apparently they prescribe to the Child Left Behind program. Africola, taste the feeling.
You know what Huron always says when we're on assignment together? Not a goddamn thing. I like Huron.
So far, Jimmy Olsen simply introduced himself and asked how she landed this interview. He hasn't been a jackass or insulted Lois in any way, but here he is getting cut out of the movie before Warner Brothers gets a chance to do it themselves.
Your fixer said that the general approved photos?
This line is included, in case you needed more evidence that the bad guys are even bigger assholes when they later smash Jimmy's camera.
They did not tell me the interview was with the lady.
Man, what's up with this fucking fixer? Does he communicate anything with anyone? He must be a random mechanic that everyone just assumes can arrange complex international media encounters with rebel killers.
Who pays for the drones that pass over our heads at night?
By this point in the theatrical release, Jimmy's camera is already smashed. Watch these two movies side by side, and you go back in time. Why the fuck would a clandestine tracker beacon beep this loudly, or at all?
Stand down as an order.
How do you go from a vapid military drama to an over-CGI doomsday in 3 hours or less? Stick around! The Ultimate Edition clears the air on whether or not this dude shot more dudes during this gunfight. Is there even anybody in this tank? It's just a parked tank, right? Maybe it's sabotage. I have no clue, but explosions!
You are clear to engage.
You know, if Superman had arrived a bit earlier and just saved Lois, and the CIA went ahead and blew the hell out of the village, there wouldn't be any reason for the Senate panel to investigate Superman. So Lex is extremely lucky here with the sequence of events, which is really this whole fucking movie. Also, let's talk about Lex's plan. He somehow knows Lois is going to interview an African warlord, knows the CIA is involved, somehow inserts his own men into the situation, knows that Superman will show up, knows that he can implicate Superman when things go wrong. If he was this smart, he should have won already. Drone v Superman. Yeah, the CIA was about to bomb this entire village. I assume at least one person saw the missile headed there, and heard the gunshots beforehand, but everybody fucking blames Soups for whatever reason. They should be thanking him for saving everyone else's life. Jesus, this fucking movie. Ultimate Edition of movie contains Ultimate Edition of Amy Adams acting solely through her face.
He came down, then came fire.
Now it makes a lot more sense. Superman is being accused of burning all those bodies, which we didn't see in the theatrical release. We're still not removing a sin because they still somehow find a way to blame Superman based on one person's testimony, a person they never vet once. Metropolis State. Also, more exciting football action, as can only be brought to you by the Ultimate Edition.
Gotham City, you know how they are about their football team.
Yep, it's all I ever hear about Gotham City. Their football fandom erupts in violence worse than Vancouver after a hockey loss. Zack Snyder drops a reference to another comic book movie that he epically f***ed. Honest to God, this cop climbs more stairs in this version. Can't make this shit up. So this guy is still running an underground sex trade organization, right? Do we give a shit what happens to him? More blood! More wine! More precoital looks! Also, R-rated Ultimate Edition still gives us a PG-13 naked Lois Lane.
Those rich old ladies, they thought it was very cute, you know? Write checks for Lex.
I know this extended scene is to fill some backstory about Lex's relationship with his father, but it really only gives us a few more seconds to be disappointed in Jesse Eisenberg's performance.
To look him in his eye and ask him how he decides which lives count.
It makes way more sense for Clark to be seeing something that actually matters to his story, rather than some nonsense about Batman branding people so you should hate him, like the theatrical release did. Still, if you watch these two versions, they made Clark react the same way to Batman's branding as they did to this lady's testimony about the stuff he allegedly did. The cake is a lie! What was the direction here? Henry, we're going to show something on the TV, you just stand there and emote.
Underdog dreams dashed 10 yards between Gotham and glory.
Wait, the only football game that was added to this edition was the blowout, when Metropolis State beat Gotham City 64-0. How is that 10 yards away from anything?
Is she in?
She's been gone. In fact, if she's smart, and she got out of this city.
How long has it been since the Nairobi scene? We just saw Lois getting back yesterday, but the woman from the village has had time to say goodbye to her village after the Americans left and the government attacked, and she's had time to move to the US, appear in a Senate hearing in DC, rent an apartment, then move out? Guy just f***ed up a winning lottery ticket for an unnecessary bat sketch.
Benefit for the Library of Metropolis. Someone on the committee requested that Clark Kent cover it.
And newspapers give stories to reporters based on the requests of random people. Besides, doesn't he have football to cover? Also, assuming Lex is the one that invited Clark, how the f*** does he already know that Clark is Superman? There may be some logical explanation, but it's in neither of the cuts of this movie, so f*** that fake-ass knowledge.
No bourbon?
Kentucky girl like yourself?
Even though we got plenty of evidence the senator is from Kentucky, this edition, which is ultimate by the way, requires this clumsy exchange to drive it home.
Maybe one day Dad'll come back if I just keep everything the same. That is silly.
Movie makes a ham-fisted attempt to explain that Lex has daddy issues. Farbatsy. Batastrophe.
Who's that?
Clark asks this question even though we now know he's spent extra time investigating in Gotham, where Bruce Wayne is ridiculously super famous. We said it before we even knew that, so now let's double it.
Good people living in fear.
In the bullshit theatrical release, you didn't get this Ben Affleck smirk. Fucking bullshit theatrical release.
Never seen a medal like this.
Jenna Malone is here to deliver a line that Lois repeats later in the theatrical cut.
Experts at the Pentagon can't ID it.
And is thus adorably unnecessary. Gotta ask, why even bother casting her in this for 2 scenes? Sure, you don't know that it's gonna get cut out, but it's 2 scenes, and it's not like everybody's looking out for a Jenna Malone cameo. This makes way more sense in the Ultimate Edition. Batman's been branding lots of criminals, whereas in the theatrical release he branded one guy, and everybody decided to jump to conclusions that the Bat brand was a death sentence in prison, so we'll take a sin off because of this version, but the theatrical version still is clearly bullshit when it comes to this. Movie tries to sneak in another Watchmen reference by speeding past it, but I drink your Easter egg, movie, or something like that.
What the f*** do you want?
Seriously? One F-bomb? You could have totally given a f***ing a PG-13 cut.
I can't even piss standing up.
Well, at least the screenwriters got to throw in some more piss dialogue.
You'll take care of it. Good.
So wait, is this version of the movie saying that this guy is ordering people with the Bat brands to be killed in prison? For what f***ing reason? When Batman began branding people, did he coordinate his efforts with this dude who works for Lex? I just don't know why a Bat brand puts you at the top of the list for a shivving, that's all. Oh no, some dickhead died.
I mean, aside from the red and blue costume and the, I don't know, fact that he has 1/3 of the USA's initials on his chest.
I like Jon Stewart, but what the f*** does that mean? 1/3 of the USA's initials? Who gives a
It's the sword of Alexander.
Ultimate Cut gives us more footage of a description of a fake artifact. I applaud the theatrical edition for cutting this scene down by adding 3 more to this bloated piece of shit. Okay, some people say this isn't a dream sequence because it doesn't show Bruce falling asleep, but there is no indication whatsoever that these are potentially real events. And he's shown waking up after that scene and the Flash scene. Any reasoning like that after the fact is just excusing this silly attempt of putting out-of-place fanboy wish fulfillment into a completely different movie. Even if it's not a dream sequence, it's basically that Thor nonsense from Age of Ultron, so it's sinful as shit.
You know the mark all over, guards don't care. That's the judge.
Yeah, but is he working with the bad guys? Remember, it's the guy who works for Lex who's commissioning these Bat brand shankings in prison. What is the origin story of the Bat brand becoming an instant death sentence? What does it supposedly mean? It's some bullshit to make Batman seem like a morally weaker superhero, but has no foundation for becoming a thing. Hey Batman, you don't want to double-cross your prisoner-killing partner, do you? So far, the only interesting differences between these 2 versions are the expanded CIA attack at the beginning, the different ordering of scenes, and Clark's better understanding of the Bat brands, even though technically they still don't make sense in the story. This right here isn't one of those scenes. Does this woman live in Nairobi or not? How was she a credible witness during that CIA thing at the beginning of this movie? I don't know if they ever explain why she looks like she's lived in the greater Gotham metropolis San Jose area her whole life. Also, we're still on this C story that no one cares about.
But how could they know that he'd show up in the...
They still don't explain this in this version. Lois again cuts herself off, as if she's just realized Superman is drawn to my blood like Edward DeBella in Twilight, but they never make that plain anywhere.
Sir engineered the desert. It was an ambush for Superman.
You need proof.
No, it needs to run now.
Lois Lane, who is supposedly a great reporter, thinks this is a story you can just run without proof.
He's been using the committee as his puppet theater.
Okay, then why not call the meeting off? You know Lex has been several steps ahead of you, and you know how dangerous he is. You see him right there. I'm sure nobody saw that, and subways have 0 cameras. You can get away with anything down there. Another scene where Soups is moving extremely slowly relative to his abilities. Is this really the right place to take your sweet-ass time? Ultimate Edition, now with 100% more Alfred manual labor. Also, after that Capitol building explosion, I really wondered what Alfred thought about all this. Now, my wish is granted. There was a sin before about not seeing Batman break into LexCorp. Now that we get a brief glimpse of how awesome that break-in was, I'm adding 10 more. More things going into things. More sweaty workouts.
Alexander Luthor. Your security override has been accepted.
In the theatrical release, I just assumed they cut out the part where the ship decided to accept Luthor's override, but the edition of Ultimateness still doesn't explain it. Why is Clark walking exactly? Can't he just fly to the top of the mountain? Is he trying to prove something? Burning calories?
The inside of the chair was lined with lead.
We didn't sin the fact that Soups didn't see the bomb in the first go-around, but since this edition finally actually explains something helpful, I'll remove one sin. Still some bullshit.
So falls the House of Wayne.
This line was cut for time. One of the advantages the Ultimate Edition has over the theatrical release is more Nancy Grace. And more of the Lois kidnapping. That's the shot in the arm this movie needs. Again, this movie does nothing to explain some of the biggest questions of the movie. How Superman knows when Lois is in danger, no matter where he is in the world. How Lex knows the identities of Superman and Batman. How Lex knows how to operate the Kryptonian ship's computer functions. Stuff I'd think an extra 30 minutes is more than enough to explain, especially since most of the additions in this movie have wasted time on extra lines, more violence, and that cop climbing the stairs. It also doesn't explain the of the rest of the movie either. Guys, not making this up, but this movie adds 12 extra seconds to its runtime so we can see this asshole walk farther. More like Ultimate Edition, am I right? There is more Batman v Superman in this Batman v Superman, but it's stuff like this shit. He didn't get enough suddenly fruitless punching in the other version, now here's even more suddenly fruitless punching. I don't think we've given enough sins for this scene. Like in 2046, when we're all long dead from the Martian volcano sacrifice, the electrons in the air will sense the need to sin this idea that made it past someone's brain and onto a screenplay, and then past multiple other brains where it actually got filmed, edited, and released to the public.
I don't deserve you, Alfred.
No, sir, you don't.
This version touches more on the romantic relationship between Bruce and Alfred, an area where no other Batman movie has dared to tread, removing one sin for the obvious homosexual relationship that this movie makes no big deal about, the way it should be. More Batman kicking ass in the best scene is always a good thing, but this MPAA has me befuddled. I haven't seen one thing in this movie that would make it R-rated for violence. There's no way this is worse than your average PG-13 movie.
I don't hate the sinner. I hate the sin.
Lex Luthor's philosophy is too dangerously close to our own. Movie does explain what happened to Martha after Batman saves her, which is good, because I was beginning to think that Batman made her walk home. If anything, this version raises more questions as to why certain things are cut and why certain ones are not. Here's a shot of Perry looking out a window that saves 4 seconds when you cut it. I mean, someone actually said, "We need to lose this. The brass needs an extra 4 seconds, guys." This probably got cut because it looks stupid as shit. While we were dumbfounded that Superman didn't just throw the crypto spear instead of flying directly into Doomsday, I'm even more dumbfounded now that the spear didn't weaken Superman enough to the point where he crash-landed before being able to do that. More Superman fake death mourning. Oh shit, this explains Lex Luthor's "he is hungry" moment. Well, we'll remove a sin, I guess. Why the f did they cut this? Still, even after he sets up the Batman fight, then unleashes Doomsday, Lex has time to interact with an even badder baddie. Forget arresting this asshole, just take him out now. Chili's ready. What? Kennedy's dead? Food porn. The Lois staring at the ceiling scene stays in. Seriously, watch the theatrical version against this version side by side, and the bagpipes start playing Row, Row, Row Your Boat.
They said it's all taken care of.
By whom?
Anonymous donor.
Bruce paid for the funeral. Pretty badass.
Civilization on the wane, manners out the window.
Fucking how? Just show me any moment in either of these two editions when Lex figures this out. Apparently his superpower is to just casually know everyone's secret identities.
I arranged for you to get transferred to Arkham Asylum in Gotham.
No one's ever escaped it, so it's a perfect place to put you. Also, great, now he can interact with the other supervillains for the convenience of this universe. Wait a minute, is this burial still going on? Didn't we see Bruce here in Kansas when they dropped off the coffin? Then he went to tell Lex Luthor what's what, and now Lois is still here?
John boy.
Tell me.
You ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight?
I never really chopped wood before, but it certainly looks like fun.
And what better way to make your grand entrance on the streets of Agrabah than riding your very own brand new camel?
Watch out, they spit.
You almost took my face off.
I'd like to take his face off.
I can't be late! It's my last chance! I'm Jose Canseco! I'm Jose Canseco!
And here you sit, thinking. Well, Ricky Bobby is not a thinker. Ricky Bobby is a driver.
Night of the fight, you may feel a slight sting. That's pride f***ing with you. F*** pride.